Welcome to Cow Talks. I'm Chris Pravat, Beef Cattle and Forage Commodity Director for the Alabama Farmers Federation.
And I am Marcelo Wallau, Forage Extension Specialist with the University of Florida.
And this is our podcast, where we dive deep into the main topics affecting livestock and forage production in the southeastern United States.
From the mainstream media to new technologies straight from our research stations.
From cattle prices to international trade.
From our pastures and beyond.
Join us on this journey as we tackle the main issues affecting our producers and the sustainability of our production systems.
Hello and welcome to Cow Talks. Today we have two special guests. Besides being some of my favorite people, they are also excellent colleagues and researchers, and have dedicated a lot of time and effort to the development of sustainable agriculture strategies in Florida. Today, we're going to discuss some of the new projects we are engaging that can shape the future of the agriculture in the Southeast. Actually, those are not very new projects. We've been working on those concepts for a while. But we have new energy and new vested interest that we're going to share with you today. For starters, if you want to know more about sustainable agriculture strategies, join us in the first Southeastern Integrated Crop-Livestock System Symposium in Marianna, Florida on January 31st, 2024. If you're listening to this podcast after that date, don't worry, because you can find a lot of our material available online in our social media and through our website. And also, for more information, you can access our networking website that can connect you with your future business partner, southeasterngrazingexchange.com. Dr. Dubeux, Dr. George, welcome to our Cow Talks podcast.
Thank you, Marcelo.
Happy to be here, Marcelo.
Yeah, so Dubeux has been here in multiple episodes already, but it's the first time we have Sheeja. I'm excited to hear a little bit more about you. Sheeja, can you tell us a little bit more of your position, what you do, and also if you can link, because I love to hear more about your work that you have done in integrated crop livestock systems with the group with Dr. Wright. So if you can link your trajectory in research and extension so far, in your position now, on how you're facilitating some of those new projects that are coming up.
Sure, Marcelo. You are also one of my favorite people, so thank you for saying that. So anyway, I started with UF-IFIS, Institute of Food and Ag Sciences, back in 2006. And at the time, sod-based rotation was sustainable agroecosystems, and sod-based rotation was in its fifth year of experimentation already. And I started working with Dr. David Wright in trying to understand. They had already worked out that sod-based rotation worked for row crops to increase row crop yields. And I started looking at what's happening below ground. So I brought in soil biology and soil biochemistry and trying to understand the mechanisms of what was happening in a sod-based integrated system. So I worked in those systems, looking at asking different questions for over 10 years, and then kind of transitioned into bringing larger groups and teams together around research and extension, looking at integrated systems and asking questions around economic diversification and how to make sustainable integrated agroecosystems truly sustainable. And so currently the position that I'm in this facilitation role of building large multidisciplinary teams around big issues, I work with the Office of Research at IFIS, and I report to the research team, trying to bring multidisciplinary teams together to solve wicked issues, as you may call it.
Yes, and that is a very important position for us here, because you can connect so many of us, so many different disciplines across this large agricultural landscape. And I'm excited about some of the new work. Just to give a little bit of a background for those listening us that don't know much about the sod-based rotation project. The sod-based rotation is basically a strategy that uses 2 years of perennial pasture, in this case Bahia grass here, in a sequence with peanut and then cotton. And one of the main reasons why we started doing that is because of the high pressure of nematodes in the soil. Is that correct? Is there anything else we need to add about the sod-based rotation?
Nematodes for sure, but in general, we're sitting in a region where we have very low organic matter, and organic matter is the currency in the soil that makes it. We talked about organic soil, organic matter as a sponge, as an insurance that you build in the soil from your next drought, from your next pest cycle, from your next whatever issue that you're facing in the soil. So building that soil organic matter required a perennial root in the soil, an ever-living root in the soil. And so that was the concept behind, hey, let's break the row crop cycle with a sod, with a grass that drops big, extensive root systems in the soil. And the advantages of that are manifold. So nematodes, you're right, but just that building that soil organic matter in a region where, 0.5% increase in organic matter is also like gold. So that was the concept behind breaking the row crop cycle with the grass.
But wait a second. What happens here because we're taking our land out of production for 2 years?
Right, exactly. So that is the biggest challenge here, right? So we have decades, so now we are in its 24th year of doing this extensive sod-based rotation system in multiple locations. It was actually, let me just give you a background. It was a multi-state partnership. There was Georgia, Alabama, and Florida that initially started that. It was a USDA NIFA-funded project. So we have all the science talking about all the wonderful things that 2 years of grass would do to peanuts. It would increase yield by 50%. We have never put a pound over 60 pounds of nitrogen on the cotton, which is much, much lower than the state average fertilizer that is used on cotton. So low nutrients, you're breaking the pest cycle, low weed pressure, increased biodiversity, lower bulk density, all of that. And yet, we are taking 2 years out of production. And that's when we started talking about, hey, we need to do something with the Bahia grass that is growing there, so-called not making any money. And that's when we thought of layering that and say, okay, we need to run some animals on this. So we started looking at a hayed Bahia grass system and a grazed Bahia grass system to say, okay, we need to make the economics work. But I just want to talk about at least couple decades ago when the initial economic model that we created was a 200-acre farm. The revenue with a continuous cotton, no grass, just cotton, would be like about $5,000 per year. And our initial economic models had showed up to $22,000 in a 200-acre farm with Bahia grass. Now, of course, there's commodity prices, goes up and down, there's all of that. So I just wanted to say that initial economic analysis, that's what it did. And then the second was if we did 1 year of haying followed by the second year of grazing, that jumped up to $31,000 of revenue in the farm. So there were some very promising numbers that came up, but it doesn't always hold true in every operation. So anyway, back to your question, Marcelo. Yes, 2 years of no production, that's when the animals changed the game.
That is fantastic. And my question was actually to tease you a little bit because that's what our farmers normally say. Like, hey, I'm not going to stop producing. But when you look into the system, into the long term, not just the annual, but in the long term, there's so many benefits, including economical, most of all economic, that it really makes sense to implement a sod-based rotation. I have 2 more to add there because when you look into the overall workload, when you do this rotation, it reduces the workload because you have half of your area in a crop that's much lower maintenance. It also reduces your risk. And today, resilience is one of the major words. We really need to improve resilience. And one of the things is strategies to reduce the risk of the operation, both biophysical and also economic. But that's a good segment because we worked multiple years in the sod-based rotation. Despite all the benefits, there is still the mentality that's not feasible for us here because I'm not going to produce. I don't want to deal with cattle. And then you added the cattle to the equation, which improved. And then was by the time when Dubeux joined our group and started a new phase of this idea of integrated crop livestock systems in North Florida. Dubeux, can you tell us a little bit about the history of your ideas there, especially with the cool season grazing and the experiment you have there for how many years already?
It's been 7-8 years, Marcelo, but I would like to start recognizing the work of Dr. David Wright. For me, he was a legend. He started, this work maybe almost 25 years ago. and he was a legend in the Southeast in terms of extension, crop specialist, and he had the vision that integrated systems were really, the future. Actually, was the past. 100 years ago or so, the systems were connected. Agriculture and livestock, they were connected, and then each one, got very specialized and took different routes. But Dr. Wright saw the need to reconnect those systems, uh, and and it's amazing what perennial grasses can do. The amount of below ground biomass on the Bahia grass pastures that helps to build, like she just said, this organic matter back to our soils that are really typically very sandy. And here in Florida, it rains and it's warm, and the sandy nature of our soils, that's not a good combination to build soil organic matter. But the perennial grass, they help to do it. So I keep saying that, okay, if you're thinking about integrated crop livestock system, that's perhaps one of the best options. That's the Cadillac of the systems, right? If you're comparing with other options. And I disagree, and I know that you put that to provoke us, to take the land out of production for 2 years. But the cows are producing. They're grazing, they're putting out cows, and or you could do stocking systems or developing heifers. And to be very honest, with the current cotton prices, you can get better economic output with the cattle on the system for 2 years. Peanut is still the king crop here, at least in this part of the panhandle. That's probably where the crop that you get the most profit. But cotton has been marginal. So when cotton has a good price, it's a great rotation crop. But I think it's important for us to have options. Currently, I think it works better. It pencils out better than cotton, for example. Plus, for the soil health, it's way better to have perennial grass on the ground than cotton. But anyhow, we figured that we need to have more options, and it has to do with the land tenure system here in the region, where most of the agricultural land is leased land, maybe 70 to 80%, and those are short-term contracts renewed every year. Most likely, the person will stay in the land and continue, but it needs to be renewed every year. So the long-term vision sometimes is not there. And going back to the sod-based rotation, when Dr. David Wright started the system back 25 years ago, there was less than 1% organic matter in that ground, maybe 0.8%. Today is around 2.5. That's a 200% increase plus, right? In the organic matter, which is one of the most important things that we have in our soil, to build soil health. But we figured that not everyone could do it, not everyone, because of the land tenure, the leasing agreements, and all of that. So, okay, instead of the Cadillac, let's try to get the Toyota that everybody can buy. And perhaps that could be an entry level for, okay, you buy a Toyota and then you go for a Cadillac later. And the entry level would be, okay, you plant row crops during the summer, like everybody do. And then during the winter time, from October to April, where is that, 95% of the people on the row crop land, they don't do anything from October to April. And I know they have other things to do. They need to hunt, they need to fish, they need some vacation with the family, but they could partner with other folks to use that land from October to April. Actually, that's a great opportunity to bring young farmers to farm that land and open up opportunities for the young generation. So we think that you could integrate winter cropping systems that could work in that window. And for us and for me especially, that I work with cattle, the crop livestock system is like the low hanging fruit, because we know that's the best time of the year to grow forages. You can put 2 pounds per day just on grazing during that time of the year. And you could develop heifers. We have almost 1 million cows in Florida. It's 900,000 beef cows and 100,000 dairy cows plus. And you could develop heifers. You could develop stocker systems, put sheep gains before shipping this cattle to the Midwest, right here in the Panhandle. While we are doing that, we are improving soil health, because Dr. David Wright's data shows how important it is, when you reconnect cattle to the land to build soil organic matter. We actually have data showing that also reduce nitrate leaching. So it's a no-brainer. But we need to think that there are other options besides integrated crop livestock systems. Some people don't want to mess with cattle, but again, we have good examples of partners. Okay, I do the row crop, you do the cattle side, and we can work together on the same land. But we could have oilseed crops like carinara or even canola. We could, produce some grains for distillery or breweries, or even produce silage or hay, if you don't want to bring the cattle to the land. But again, bringing the cattle to the land would be better in terms of building soil health. I'm not sure how much you want me to go, but I can go on and on talking about this.
I think we don't need to prove more than the benefits, because both of you listed a long list of benefits, and I always like to bring to the economical side, because, for example, when you think about, you mentioned some of the nitrate leaching, you were thinking about the environmental commitment of us not letting that nitrate go down in our aquifer, especially in very sensitive environments in Florida. But I'm also thinking about how much money I'm saving by reusing that nitrogen after the cropping season, because I can put that nitrogen into the cover crop that's being raised and transferred to the next season. I'm also thinking about how many bushels of soybeans or corn or peanut or bales of cotton that cattle is representing in terms of revenue. And many times, and this is a very, very clear experience down from Brazil, especially in southern Brazil, especially in the dry years, the cattle was the driver of the economic outcome of the system. And it can be, you can add 20-30% more productivity to the system, just in net productivity, just by having that cattle grazing in the winter. I don't know specifically the numbers for the sod-based rotation when we have cattle both in the summer and also in the winter, but it really can make a difference. I love the part for the opportunity for the younger generation in agriculture. Today is very hard for a young person to start in agriculture. Land prices are very high. The immobilized cost is so high in terms of equipment and all that. And there is an opportunity here for the young generation to partner with landowners to be able to develop those systems. Moreover, it's an opportunity for us to keep our younger generation in farming, because you can generate another enterprise within your same operation that can be dedicated to this younger generation. So this is fantastic. Now, why are we not using it? Which is the main question of a lot of our research. Why are we not implementing those in a broad scale? Dubeux have some reasoning, especially about land tenure. There is other infrastructure needs that might be a problem still, especially in terms of fencing. But what else? What are we still missing? And now I'm thinking also of the projects that we are working in the future here. What are we going to do to foster this type, to improve the adoption of this type of system?
Yeah, so I think, Marcelo, so great science out there. We don't need to, like you said, you don't need to prove any more than we have already proved. But the rubber hits the road when we're trying to scale these systems, and that's when things start to kind of not match up. And I feel the number one thing is re-looking at the policy that we have. I think we have policy that is decades and decades old. For instance, an example of a policy is if you harvest a cover crop or if you have dual use of a cover crop, then you are not able to get any EQIP benefits, for instance. And I think it's go ahead.
Just to clarify, EQIP is a cost share program through NRCS.
Right, correct. And so that's an example where you can't do both. And that it's high time to revisit that policy. If I'm taking, like Jose mentioned a minute ago, if I can use my above ground biomass sustainably for other value-added revenue-generating outcomes, that shouldn't make me ineligible for EQIP funds. We have to take a fresh look at that policy. Another thing is there is a big movement around climate-smart practices and private industry being behind climate-smart practices. We are talking about the same things, Marcelo, that we've been talking for 30 years. That is, rotate a crop, keep a living root in the soil, and do not disturb the soil. These are the and integrate. These are the four principles, and that's what people are talking about going back to. And there's private industry behind that because they want to show how they are being sustainable in their enterprise. And so this is a great opportunity to bring industry and government agencies and our producers together at the table, at the same table, because right now these conversations have been happening differently. So there's opportunity, take a fresh look at policy, and so bring them together in a hub where we are all sitting together and saying, hey, why can we not make this happen? Who needs to move the needle where? Cover crop prices are not cheap. And, so these are all, do we need local seed increase for these cover crops? Do we need to be producing good cover crop seed in our region so that we develop a local supply chain for all of this? These are the conversations we need to have, bring all these people to the same table and start going back to the drawing board and say, let's look at it with a fresh pair of eyes.
Yes, and like Sheeja mentioned, the cover crop is not new. I mean, it go back. I don't even know. It might, but I'm sure I can find a paper on cover crop 70 years ago, and it's well documented the benefits of cover crop. But so why just 5% of the people plant cover crop here in the Southeast? So that's a good question. And for us, one of the answers is the economics. Along with the land tenure system, we know that the benefits of the cover crop will be long term, and it will come, but not in the cover crop itself, but in the following cash crops. But it takes time, and the economics don't pay off, especially if you're not the landowner. So how can we solve these things? And I think one of the goals of our group is try to find options that brings the benefits of the cover crops, but they are economically sustainable. They can pay for themselves and actually, leave some money for whoever is developing those systems. Actually, people are in the business because they need some money, right? So at the end, it's not a sin to make money. Actually, they need to make money to be sustainable. That's one of the first things of the sustainability. So we need to find systems and options for the window from October to April that could work. And it takes a village, to solve this problem because they are complex in nature. I think the biology is probably the easiest problem to solve. I think we have options that could work in terms of the biology of the system. But when you think about the social and economic aspects and supply chain and buyers and sellers, so we need to bring all of those people together to discuss the bottlenecks that they have, and hopefully with our team and our projects try to solve those bottlenecks and promote those systems, because it's a win-win for everybody. It's a win for the row crop farmer. It's a win for whoever is using that land in the winter time, because that will create another economic opportunity. It's a win for the environment because you're building soil health, we are building soil organic matter, we are reducing nitrate leaching. And now we're talking about sequestering carbon in the ground, and carbon and nitrogen, they goes together. Sometimes we don't think about this, but carbon and nitrogen goes together. So when you're building soil organic matter, we're also tying up the nitrogen in the soil and reduce nitrate leaching. Our data is showing that here. So I think it's really a no-brainer, but it's a complex problem to solve, and you need to bring people together.
One of the one of the things that we often hear, especially from so we normally have the early adopters of technology, and then we have the middle group and then the laggers. And many times the middle group and the laggers, the excuse is that, well, this is very nice in research, but how does it really works in a real world situation in larger scale? But we're here, we have a large network of both researchers and producers with large and long-term experiment or practical systems already in place in the Southeast, to be as an example, right?
That's right.
Yes, Marcelo. Yeah, there are good examples. There are successful stories. I would say the pioneers, the first adopters, they are doing it, and they are doing it successfully. So we want to learn from them, what's behind their successful stories. And some of those folks, they are working together with our group, and they are very keen and willing to share their successful stories so that you can hopefully multiply that to other people. You mentioned at the beginning you have a Southeast Grazing Exchange website. It's like a matchmaker for farmers, row crop farmers, livestock producers that want to work together to share the same land, but on different times of the year. With your try to expand that concept to other options besides livestock or the winter cropping. Okay, I have land that is fallow. Would you be willing to plant some grain crops or some canola or some other option that could potentially be available? So that's something that we're trying to work.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, sorry, can I add something, Marcelo, very quickly? Is like, we have testimonies from producers. I'm not sure if I can take names, but testimonies of producers who have said, we've taken part of our land and we integrated it with cattle, and that was the land that they never had to put more than, they had to put very low amounts of nitrogen on their following cotton. And so we have those testimonies from producers who have actually tried it at large scale. These are prominent producers, in the Jefferson and Jackson County area. So there's that, and those we can always learn lessons from them. So lots of testimonies. And right now, what the researchers are trying to do is helping producers make those decisions for themselves. It's almost like hedging, okay? From year to year, commodity prices are low. Should I just keep my land in grass? And should I just run cattle because I'm not getting anything from cotton? So there's too much of decision making, and we hope we can give them tools through some of our ongoing research to make this decision making on a year-to-year basis easier.
Yeah, that is perfect. Those tools are going to be super helpful, and once we can start modeling at the farm level what each decision is going to impact, not only this year and not only in one field, but at the farm scale and across time, because a lot of those investments in management practices, they need to be implemented in a long-term scale. One of the other things I see often people saying like, well, I've tried grazing a year and didn't work out. Well, 1 year is not a really good number for us to make a decision, because it takes time to implement the system, to learn how to manage the system. And many of the biological processes also take time to stabilize. So you're going to harvest the benefits of those integrated systems probably 2, 3, 4 years. But then that's when things change. And that's when we really start making a huge difference in terms of the sustainability, economical, environmental, and also social sustainability of our systems.
I want to bring another point, Marcelo, is that in the recent years, we've been seeing a movement of investment companies buy land in the region, and that has changing a little bit the landscape. And with that, the land price has been increasing, and at the end, the leasing price, they also are kind of going up, because to pay for for the investment and the profitability of the land. So I've been talking to some of these folks, and one of the goals is really to use that land during that fallow period to increase also the profitability and bring the profitability of that particular investment higher. And they've seen that when you integrated crops and livestock, for example, you really make the thing work better in terms of the financial side. Things are changing, and we need to observe the movement and adapt. So making your land to produce twice instead of just once per year, and living, besides all the soil health benefits, so organic matter that what we all mentioned, there's also the increase in terms of the profits of the land.
I remember a farmer once telling me, like, I wish I could have multiple floors in my land to produce more, because it was limited. This person was limited in terms of amount of land. And I said, well, this is the perfect example where we don't need multiple floors. We just need multiple crops. We just need to organize a production system where we are using the land to the best of its potential. Mark Liebig has a very good concept of matching the land use and the land potential to get the best outcome. And this is where we want to go with some of those projects. Just as a matter of magnitude, we have 4.1 million acres in Florida, Georgia, and Alabama that are traditionally planted to corn, cotton, peanut, and soybeans. Okay, 4.1 million. 3.9 million acres remaining fallow during the winter. That's a lot of land that's been unproductive during the winter. And we have the opportunity to plant rye, oat, ryegrass, triticale, clover, brassicas for grazing, and also some brassica or silage or hay, and also some brassicas for cutting, some grasses like wheat for cutting too. Out of those, 2.6 million acres are irrigated, which reduces our risk of implementing. So at the same time, we're feeding a lot of animals in the winter, high-cost hay, high-cost supplement, and we're cutting our profit because we're shipping the calf crop to the plains to go on winter grazing many times and before going to the feedlots. So there is a great, even the replacement heifers here many times are raised out of state and then brought back. So there is a great opportunity for us to use those integrated systems with the crop plan to really improve the efficiency and the profitability of our agricultural production system in the Southeast. There is a lot more to discuss. There is a lot more in mind. And I think the next episodes we're going to start to talk more about the soils component, the crop management component, and also how to implement in the real world. And one thing I want to do at some point with you is a myth busting about crop and livestock system. There are so many myths that we need to break here and that we have research to prove otherwise, and also help people really thinking about those. One of those is the compaction, the hoof effect, for example, or putting my land out of production for some time. Well, before I wrap up, I want to give you opportunity for some final comments. Dubeux, one final comment, and also another shout for the southeastgrazingexchange.com for those interested in more on it. Link is going to be in the description of this podcast.
Yeah, well, my last comment is that for those of you hearing this podcast, and if you're interested in this huge opportunity, to use this 3.9 million of acres during the fallow period, and you don't know how to start, please contact our group. Myself, Marcelo, Sheeja, and all our team here, because we are starting a large project trying to put all those people together in a hub, and hopefully try to understand the bottlenecks for adoption, promote those systems, and create a better environment and also a better economic situation for everybody here in the Southeast. Thank you very much, Marcelo.
Sheeja, you've been working on this for a while, and now we're very excited about some of the new projects coming up. Your final considerations and where we're heading with this new effort.
Yes. So my final word is there's opportunities. There's opportunities coming. Let's keep our eyes open. Let's not dismiss anything as, oh, that's not going to work. There's opportunities in sustainable aviation fuel. There's opportunities to integrate solar and grazing. There's many opportunities to make that land produce more. We don't need more land, but we need to make that land produce more. And a concept that you're not going to be paid only for your yield, but as something beyond yield, as in for the ecosystem services that you're building on your soil, there needs to be a model to be paid for that. So there's opportunities. We need you to come in with your ideas because we are all one community. So that's where this enterprise is going to work and succeed.
Fantastic. For those that want to learn more about our projects, contact us. One good way is through our email, forages@ifas.ufl.edu. That's forages@ifas.ufl.edu. This comes to me, and we route that to the respective person. We also work very closely with our local county agent. That's very important. Second, join us January 31st, 2024 in Marianna, Florida for the first Southeastern Integrated Crop Livestock System Symposium. And again, if you're hearing this podcast after this date, don't worry, we got you covered. There is a lot of materials available in our social media, through our website, and more to come through our extension system. Sheeja, José, thanks for participating today. I'm excited for this new project, and I'm excited to see you also in Marianna late January.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Marcelo.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for joining us on this Cow Talks podcast. We hope you have enjoyed this conversation.
If you have any questions, ideas, follow-ups, or comments, please reach out to us through our email, forages@ifas.ufl.edu. That is forages@ifas.ufl.edu, or find us on our social media, uf.forages on Instagram, UF Forage Team on Facebook, or UF IFAS Forages on YouTube.